Building my BMW 135i 1M replica has tested me in so many ways, but more so mechanically than anything else. For a quick recap, I bought this as a completely standard BMW E82 135i, which comes fitted with the N54 engine, then done my best to repair that to as best standard as possible, and also wide body the car with this beautiful 1M body kit, and also paint it in BMW purple silk. And part of the mechanical work was changing the turbos on the car, which I have already done and changed them for upgraded ones. Now the car does need to be tuned, but there's a few little things that we need to do before we can do that. Now I'm not looking to set the world on fire and build the world's fastest BMW 135i. I just want a really nice, fast, drivable car which is going to make power reliably. And that brings us nicely onto today's video. So the first thing to do in this video, we have two silicone pipes to fit. One of them which goes at the front of the engine bay just about here, and this one here which goes somewhere just there, sort of. There, that's about right. In the box, we've also got a couple of these little ram air filters which will go on the end of the pipes and fit around there too. But I know this doesn't sound like much, but I promise you, some people even take the engine out just to fit these pipes. It's so overly complicated. Now, there is also a slight performance gain. They reckon from fitting these filters and these less restrictive intake pipes, you can gain about 60 horsepower-ish, but I don't know how true that is, but let's get them on the car anyway. Now, in reality, it would have been better for me to change these pipes at the same time as when I did the turbos, but I didn't know that you had to change them, and by the time I was in there already doing the job, it was already too late. So here we are, and we've got to take most of the stuff off, which we did to change the turbos all over again. So I'm going to take off all the scuttling to reveal the full engine bay, and remove some of the intake pipes to reveal the pipe at the front of the engine bay, which I need to remove. Now that one is pretty accessible, but the one at the back of the engine bay is not. It's the opposite. You almost can't even see it. So I've got to remove the complete subframe and everything else which we removed when I did the turbos in order to get full access to be able to fit that pipe. So once I'd removed the under trays and the inner tie rods, I could start cracking off the lower control arms, and once that was done, I could start disconnecting the steering rack from the subframe. Me doing this now just goes to show that, you know, you do learn very, very quickly. Obviously, I had Nick help me last time when it came to removing all this to do the turbos, but now I've got to pretty much remove all the exact same stuff again, and I definitely felt a lot more comfortable doing it. Anyway, next thing to come off is the anti-roll bar, and as soon as that's off, I can go back up top and start removing some more stuff up there. So back in the engine bay, I've got to remove the plastic engine cover, and then I can start looking at removing the fan from the front of the engine bay. There's just one screw which holds this in, and also an electrical connector. As soon as those are removed, a small clip on the side, and it should slide out from the top. This gave me the most room possible to be able to access that hose at the front of the engine bay, but it did not want to play ball. One of the bolts was rounded and kind of seized in place, so I had to use that little saw to be able to cut the pipe and then be able to remove it from the car. Once that was off, I can then remove the airbox, which is going to give me the full view as best as I'm going to get of that pipe which goes around the back of the engine. As I already said, I am going to have to remove the subframe to do this, but to be able to do that, you've got to take the weight of the engine. So putting in this tow-eye hook and then supporting it with like this engine beam support crane thing will enable you to take the subframe off without the engine falling on your head. I've got to be especially careful on my car because I've got fiberglass wings. I need to be very, very careful not to crack those when putting the weight of the engine on them. So spreading the weight out more, using these wood bits rather than those little jack pads seemed to make a lot more sense. But once this was wound up, the weight of the engine was then on this rather than the subframe, so we could start removing the bolts from the engine mounts and the subframe and get that off the car. So with everything tucked out of the way, we could then crack off all 6 bolts which hold that subframe in place and move it off around the steering rack, which is then going to give us access to the down pipes, which we can remove to then give access to the rear turbo to be able to fit that pipe. We also decided to make it much easier just to remove the steering rack off the knuckle and move it out of the way, because we were going to be faffing around a lot around it, so to get it out of the way just made it a lot easier. But as soon as that was done, we could then remove the down pipes and the engine mount, and then we could actually finally see that turbo. So to remove the pipe itself, there's 2 T30s right around the back of the engine which hold it in place, and it's just a push fit on the turbo. So as soon as those are out, in theory, you should be able to pull the pipe out, but as is the case with anything with this engine, it's never that simple. So I had to stuff the turbo full of a glove to make sure I wasn't going to get any debris in it, and cut the pipe in half to be able to slide it out from the top and the bottom. I'd like to also point out that with this car, it always feels like 1 step forward and 2 steps back, and I did actually break something whilst doing this, but you'll have to wait until later in the video to see exactly what that was. Luckily, that made it a lot easier, and the bottom part came out really easily, and also the top part did too.
Woo-wee!
there is the old one off. As you can see, we had to cut that end to be able to pull it out from the top nice and easily, but you can see why they need changing, because this one kind of squashes down in sandwiches, where the other one, modelled by Nick, is much more tubular. But we're going to have to lubricate that one to get it in, but I don't think it's going to be easy. What do you think? No. Let's lube up, boy.
Plenty of lube.
You would have thought this would be such a simple part, just slotting a silicone pipe into place, but access is so tight and there's so much stuff for the pipe to get caught on, it's a real wrestle to get it into place. And it felt like it was going to be impossible just doing this from the top, so I plonked myself on the engine bay, and Nick sends me up in the air so he can pull the pipe down as I push it down, and hopefully, with a bit of teamwork, we can get it in place. So after a good wrestle, we managed to get that pipe about where it needed to be, but it still wasn't going to be so easy to get on, so we had to actually remove the actuator from the turbo to be able to give proper access to be able to fit that tiny little Jubilee clip. It just seems mad, doesn't it? But once that one was on, we could then start looking at the front one, which in theory should have been a lot easier, and well, it was, but still, it wasn't as easy as it should be. The access to the turbo is just ridiculous, so we ended up dropping the water pump off to be able to give ourselves a bit more room to be able to get that pipe on and the Jubilee on and make sure it was sealing tightly. Well, that was a little bit of a mission, but we're getting there now. Both of those pipes are on the car about 7 hours later, and we did also find a little leak on the water pump, which we managed to fix by tightening up the Jubilees a bit, but I think we're on the home run now.
I did run out of time, faced with your advice to get her back in mind. I struggled to suffice, weighed down by all your pride. Had to break my stride and get back on my feet, with nothing left to ensure.
So we are now finally on the road to reassembly. As I say, this has took about, I think it was about 6 hours up to this point, maybe 7. It does make things take a lot longer filming, and also as well, we've got other things to do apart from working solidly on the car, but it is not an easy task, let me tell you that. So the downpipes are back on, the subframe is on, the steering rack is attached, the lower arms are attached too, and the next thing we've got to do is get the inner tie rods back on the steering rack, fit the anti-roll bar, and then it's back up top to finish off up there. So after we'd reconnected the inner tie rods, we could then refit the anti-roll bar with those 4 bolts and the drop links too. But that was about it for underneath, but there was still plenty more to do up top. We had to refit the fan, we had to remove the engine crane hoist thing, and also as well we had to fit the new ram air filters to those silicone pipes too. It's also worth noting that front silicone pipe is very, very close to the pulleys and also the fan, so you have to cable tie it to the fan housing to make sure that the pulleys don't rub on it, so that's a very important thing to do. Now on the final home run, once those ram air filters were in place, I could then put the scuttle panel in and it should be just about good to go. And the final piece to the puzzle, the under tray can go back on the car, completing the job. And we are finally done, sort of. The reason I say sort of is because although the install of those silicone pipes is absolutely fine, whilst doing that I managed to knock this coolant line here, snapping the little nipple on this joiner, meaning that I cannot drive the car, which is super frustrating, so I need to fix that. But same as last time, a massive thank you to Nick. He said if anyone with a Bmw N54 engine wants any work doing, it's completely free if you go to his garage, so just pop down, he'll sort whatever problem you have. If it's a new engine, new turbos, you name it, he's got your back.
And the V58s now.
Okay, so yesterday, even though I managed to get those inlet pipes changed, I had another problem. The BMW bit me in the arse yet again. When messing around in the engine bay, I managed to catch one of the coolant lines and, well, look on the floor. Look at the state of it when I pulled the car out. Check behind you here.
Nice.
She had a bit of a dribble. So, I've been to BMW and I've got some brand new coolant pipes. I've gone OTT and ordered more than I need and just replacing everything that's around that area to make sure that I'm not going to have a problem. So, well, let's go. So we can see from moving it 2 feet, it's had an absolute cool. Oh, that's not good, is it?
Wow, that's so the air filter.
Maybe I want to do something about that. Bit of a problem. So anyway, it's this pipe here, and it just absolutely disintegrated. This section of plastic's just turned into powder. So I think it's going to be pretty easy to change. It should just be pop that off, pop this off, and we're good to go. Maybe.
Famous last words.
It's definitely going to break something else. So let's start. Ooh, here. Let's go here. Is this the right tool for the job?
It looks legit.
If it works, it works. And watch this just snap off as well.
Oh yeah, of the expansion tank.
Ow. And then there's one. Oh, we've got one on the bottom as well, haven't we?
Break it.
I think she's coming. There we go. Why would it go that gently after all that?
This is why people buy electric cars now.
Hey, I don't blame
Don't
them.
have all this weird stuff on it.
Do you know what? This car, as good as this engine is, right, it's nothing but problems. I thought, like, this wasn't even crashed when I got it. This was like, it was okay. I knew it was a bit tatty, but I've changed like everything, and all it's doing is just keep biting me in the arse. Coming off, I'm gonna die.
Last time I had a screwdriver, man, bad things happened. So
yeah, got PTSD. Yes.
Gang business.
Last one.
Can I have it tuned after this?
Almost.
Yes. Gang business.
Bit dirty, that one. This is where it gets beautiful. It should all be clip and fit.
Break it again. For mad bands.
Shall I? I'll tell you what, I'll give you odds of 10 of me just chucking this in the bush.
What's the odds?
Well, you say a number, I'll say a number between 1 and 10.
Okay, ready?
3, 2, 1, 7. It's gotta go. It's gotta go. I really need to go and find that.
That's gone.
How much was that pipe, mate?
I think it went like this way. It didn't look like it hit the floor though.
Yeah. You know, sometimes you regret things in life. I didn't have to chuck it that hard either. There it is.
Oh
What's his name?
my god.
What's his name?
He's got it.
What's the guy's name? What drinks his wee?
What?
That guy drinks his own wee.
Imagine if that wasn't this pipe.
Bear Grylls.
Better drink my own pee.
Other one.
It's Bear
I
Grylls.
am Bear Grylls, but we're back in business. Let's get this pipe on, but first, Matt, odds on 10 and I'll chuck it in the bush.
You ready?
3, 2, 1, 3.
Oh,
Yes.
I was gonna say
Yes. Yes. Okay, we're good. That means it's fate that didn't go in the bin.
Hands are tight. No, we're ready.
Yes, that was satisfying, wasn't it?
Satisfaction.
It's so much quicker when you don't just chuck things in the bush.
Yeah, it's normally.
It's weird that, isn't it? I'll be able to drive home. I've been here for 48 hours now. Still not been home. And that is legitness. Now that is done, I think the car is more or less ready to hit the dyno. So, like I said at the start of the video, I'm not looking to make the fastest car in the world. I just want to make a really nice, quick, usable daily driver, which more than anything is reliable. Because let's face it, so far this car has not been that. And just quickly, for those of you that know this engine, you might be wondering why I haven't changed the turbo outlet pipe just down here. And that's because, well, one of two reasons. Firstly, with it being a right-hand drive car, there is limited options, I believe, on what you can do with that pipe. I think there is one or two, but my second point is, to be honest with you, if that's the limiting factor when it comes to power with this car, then so be it. I'm more than happy with that. But anyway, that's going to have to wait until next time. But for now, make sure you're subscribed because we have a new car coming to the channel very, very soon. And also, so you don't miss out on what power the BMW makes on the dyno. But for now, smash a like on this video and I'll catch you next time.